The fighter had captured public imagination in a way the reconnaissance plane never would. But as citizens mourned the loss of their national heroes, military thinkers on all sides were awakening to the lethal efficiency of air power in all its roles. Reconnaissance, artillery spotting, and aerial combat had all found their places. But there was one potential role that had yet to be realized: bombing. Since before the war had started, military minds had been obsessed with the possibilities, but thwarted by the technology.
They started off by dropping literally artillery shells with fins on the end. That's how it all started. The pilot and the observer in the observing aeroplane thought, would it be good if we could just drop a shell directly onto the enemy below?
This is probably the earliest British bomb I've got, which was a handheld one, and this would have been chucked over the side of the aeroplane. Inside here is a propeller, and that was held in place with a thin piece of wire that, as soon as a bomb dropped, it broke, and this sent the propeller spinning and effectively armed the detonation system on it. That was developed into bombs. Of course, they got heavier, and hoiking them out of the aircraft and dropping them over the side was no longer a practical proposition.
On the Western Front in 1914, there were no planes big or powerful enough to carry heavy bomb loads. But in the East, a different war was being waged. There, the Germans were bedeviled by a 20-year-old visionary who had developed a remarkable, almost futuristic new weapon. His name was Igor Sikorsky.
Sikorsky, before the war began, had developed something which, even to our eyes today, looks like a prototypical heavy bomber. 4-engine plane, something quite extraordinary at the time, could carry something like a crew of 10, significant payload, significant range.
The Ilya Muromets is startling for its time because it had an enclosed cockpit and passenger compartment. Inside, he had a table with linen on it with wicker chairs. There was lighting inside of the passenger compartment. The interior of the cabin was also heated, which is unbelievable for the time. This is 1914. And you could walk out on the upper part of the fuselage and stand atop the Ilya Muromets and look out as the plane cruised at 3,000 to 5,000 feet. And when you think of the enormity of the Russian landscape, the Russians thought of big airplanes, airplanes with range, capacity. It's not like living in Belgium.
Sikorsky's plane was an efficient bomber that caused the Germans real problems in the East. But they themselves did not develop their own big bomber until much later in the war, when they canceled production of the hugely expensive Zeppelins and developed the twin-engine Gotha bombers instead. The design was based in part on Sikorsky's plane.
In 1917, a new threat emerges with the Gotha. These are heavy-engined, for the time, bombers who could carry a decent payload of bombs in the sense of it was worth dropping, it was going to do some damage. The most effective raid was June the 13th, 1917, when they actually did hit London hard. The real damage they were doing is in nuisance value. You have to switch the lights up, you have to switch factories down, you close down the furnaces. That's not good for them. It all causes disruption. You don't stop transport, but you disrupt it. And in the end, what they were achieving was to be a bloody nuisance.
A nuisance? Yes. But the June 13th raid also killed 162 Londoners and wounded more than 432 others. The casualties created shockwaves throughout the establishment. Without knowing it, the Germans had set in motion a progression that would change the very nature of warfare. By highlighting the need for home defense, the raids prompted Britain to form the world's first independent air force. From then on, The RAF would be autonomous, operating alongside the Army instead of within it. The change would be a momentous one and would set the course for all future military campaigns. Only through a comprehensive and versatile use of the airplane in all its roles could one nation hope to prevail against another. Land power and sea power would no longer be enough. In 4 years, the airplane had grown from an unarmed, underpowered scouting machine, distrusted by its own commanders, into a primary weapon so valuable and so versatile, it merited its own command. The Great War had taken the airplane and turned it into a warrior.
We need aircraft to carry bombs. They will be slow, but they will be heavy, well defended, and carry a lot of weight. We need quicker aircraft to observe the territory of the enemy that can bring the information very quickly. We need small aircraft, very quick, very maneuverable, to fight the observing aircraft of the enemy, to fight the bombers of the enemy.
With the arrival of the bomber, the air armada was now complete. World War I had seen the emergence of the world's first integrated air force, created for reconnaissance, ground support, aerial combat, and bombing. But the end of the war did not mean the end of aerial progress. Only the first fledgling steps had been taken, and it would require many more advances and many more wars before the warplane would truly establish the age of air power.